click on links and stuff. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So ours should go live. Yeah, there we are. Okay. So I'm going to get started. I see we already have some viewers, so that's great. Welcome, guys. As you know, I'm Felicia Johnson, the author of Her. Today, we are having a discussion, an open discussion with you guys. So if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat box. We'll do our best to answer any questions you have and acknowledge your comments. So it is an open discussion, and today we have Miss Robin, and she is going to talk about healing through art, and she's going to show us some of her beautiful artwork and tell us stories about the artwork behind the stories behind her artwork. So I'm going to let Miss Robin tell you about herself.
Well, hello, everybody. This is my first experience with the YouTube Live, so I just want to say hi and thank you, Felicia, for inviting me to join you. My name is Robin Gilliam, and I am with Recovery Art Studio, and I have been in long-term recovery since February 6, 1991, and also a Me Too sexual assault survivor using art and 12 steps to heal and recover. And I've also recently identified those that I will be working with called Recovery Art Warriors. If you're also a Me Too and in recovery, then welcome all the Recovery Art Warriors. And we're going to be talking about how that's going to work, and also take a little look into my book and see where this all started. So thanks, Felicia.
Awesome. And Lisa's here. She says hello. Hi, Lisa. It's good to see you. Maybe you can help keep the chat flowing for us and get other people encouraged to jump in there too. I know that we had some questions come in like right away through email, and one of the questions was directed to Robin, and I believe one of the questions had to do with your recovery and how you use art in your recovery. Do you want to go into that a little bit and share some of your artwork?
Sure. So when I started recovery, when I came into 12-step rooms, I had already had a bachelor's in art and psychology, but I had stopped doing any artwork. And even though I wanted to help people through, like as an art therapist that died when I had a crack cocaine overdose. And then when I came into the program, a friend took me to a collage class, and I started to do collage work and found that it was a great way to express myself, because when I was using, all I did was shove down my feelings and numb out. And so the collages were ways for me to do that. And I found that, and they were all abstract collages with things that I had collected from home. And I found that the more I put things together, the more I felt unbroken, the more I felt put back together. And I do have a few I want to share. And these pieces were done, everybody can see that. These pieces were done in 2008. And 2008 was a particularly hard time because my husband was going through opioid addiction, and he actually was into a program and almost died. And I know everybody knows about the opioid and heroin epidemic we're having, but this one was called Grass is Greener. Is the Grass Greener? You know, and a lot of my pieces I've started to realize our life is going on around the outside, and then on the inside there's a focal point or someplace that's where we can focus and feel safe. And I noticed with the windows, I did things with dollhouse windows in this one. And this one was called, this was a series, can you see? It was called Through the Storm. And this is actually 3D paint around the edges, and then you can see some coming through the storm. And this piece was, these three pieces were actually included. I think I have 40 pieces in my book, and I can do a reading later if you want about these pieces.
Sure, that would be great. We would definitely want to hear, because Robin has written a phenomenal book, and she's going to tell you about it when she starts to do a little bit of a recital. And a lot of her artwork is featured in the book. And I've read the book myself. You can find my review on my blog at feejohnson.wordpress.com. And her book is called Gift of Desperation. And so Robin's going to tell us about that, and she's going to talk about her art pieces and how they tie into the story. It is an absolutely phenomenal story, you guys, but I'm going to let her tell you about that. We had a question from Star, and Star, I don't know how old Star is, but she wanted to ask you, Robin, how does a person start the recovery process if they've been addicted to alcohol since they were in their teens? I guess this person is older and they've just been drinking since they were a child, apparently, and they want to know, how can a person just start recovery after, I guess, drinking for basically almost their whole life?
So that, you said the person's Star, that was a great question. I started using at the age of 14, and I didn't come into program till 28, 14 years later. And then at that time I had, even though I was off of drugs and alcohol, I had switched to food, and then it took me another 14 years. So I don't think it matters, and this is just my personal opinion, I don't think it matters when we started to use whatever substance it is we're using. What I think matters is when you're ready to make a change. When are you ready to get better? That's the most important thing is, and that's what the book, Gift of Desperation, is. I wanted to answer the question, what is that point in time when we've had enough? And then once we decide we've had enough, making a decision where you're going to go. Do you need to go to a rehab? Do you need to step into 12-step rooms? What pathway are you going to choose in order to get better? For me, I was told to go to 12-step rooms. If you want to know the specific ones, you can private message me on Facebook or Instagram, because I don't advocate for any particular 12-step programs. I just know that they're a roadmap for me. But what I would say is, if you want to go into 12-step rooms, I was told go to 90 meetings in 90 days. Find a sponsor who has what you want. Pay attention to who's talking in the rooms and what their recovery looks like. Get a sponsor and start to work the steps. And the most important thing is, you got to stop using. I mean, I was told we don't use no matter what we don't use. Life keeps happening. And until I put down that substance, I couldn't get better. So, and I haven't used through my dad having cancer, my husband having cancer, having to put down like 4 animals, going through bankruptcy, which I don't talk about a lot because there's a lot of shame in that, getting fired or let go from a job in the government, which I never thought was possible, on and on and on, moving. So, and I haven't used through any of that. And through the little stuff. The little stuff's almost harder. So I think that's a great question, but it's not when we started, it's when we're ready to just make that change and then taking an action.
That's a very good point. It's when you are absolutely ready to make a change. And, there's all different types of addiction, like Robin said. It doesn't matter what substance you use. I myself, had a self-harming addiction, and it's a struggle every day. Like Robin said, it could be the little things that can trigger you to want to turn to that addiction. And for me, it was dopamine, the chemical that the body naturally produces when you have pain caused to your body. So that was, whenever something stressful happened and I couldn't control the situation, I turned to cutting myself or burning myself. And I mean, there were times where I even tried to break my own bones, and that's not a good thing. But I had to be ready. I had to be ready to stop doing it. And sometimes it takes that almost near-death experience to wake you up, unfortunately. But if you're fortunate enough to survive it, then you can definitely get through it. And Robin, that was just a really good point that you brought out there. There was one more question that was directed to you, Robin, by Chris. I think his name is Chris. It starts with a K, but it looks like his name is Chris. He said, do you hold art workshops for people who are in recovery? And if so, Where do you hold them? Do you do any online? And he wants to know how much. So it's kind of a loaded question there.
Well, hey, Chris, that's an exciting question because I do hold art workshops, and up until now, from about the last couple of years, I've done them in rehab or recovery centers, and I'm now breaking out and inviting people into. So instead of going into one, I'm having one with a counseling service called Argo. I'm working with a counselor, and we're doing one on May 12th called Recovery Art Warriors Me Too Workshop. So I'm going to be working with people who have had sexual assault in their background and are recovering. And I believe, these are my opinions, that there is trauma behind each and everybody who's in recovery. For me, it's the sexual assault. For my husband, it was sexual assault and the beatings. And so I'm been engaged in this for a long time. And which is why I wrote my book, because I really had to process all this. But so the art workshops, I'm really excited. This is a full day workshop. It's going to take us from like a dark place all the way to a light place. We're going to layer up and create a full, unique artwork. And it's going to be hands-on. All art supplies are included. And the poster the flyer is on my website at www.recoveryartstudio.com. Each workshop is going to be a different price, so it's going to be kind of hard to answer that question online here. This one is the first one, so it's priced a little lower, but it is a full day, and we're really excited. And it's open to all genders, the LGBTQ community, anybody that needs to come in and get recovery and learn how to use art to heal. And to process life and to stay in the light. I want to help people find their dreams and reclaim their light, because there's no reason we need to be living in this darkness anymore.
Exactly. And you mentioned shame earlier. I think that plays a big part of people staying quiet. There's a lot of shame behind, abuse, trauma, addiction, and the only way to really start that healing process is to understand that shame, not get over the shame, because it's not going to happen like that. But you have to actually understand yourself, what you're going through, and where the shame is coming from. And that's where I believe the recovery process starts, because that shame is a killer. It can keep you silent, and it's not easy. But that's why we do this, because that's why we call ourselves recovery art warriors, right? Because when you're a warrior, you're fighting battle. And using art, as Robin has brought out, is a very, very therapeutic way to get past that shame and get into recovery, the real recovery process. So Robin, I'm going to let her talk more about RAW, Recovery Art Warriors, and show everybody your book, Robin, before you start reading, so that they can see what your book looks like and the beautiful artwork on the cover.
Okay, thank you. So I think there was one question about how do we become writers, and so I want to address that, and then I think that'll lead right into the book. I'm a technical writer at work. I do technical writing, but I got a message. It was, I don't know, around the 2008 period that said, you need to write a book. And and being that I believe in a higher power, I kind of looked up and I said, well, who are you talking to? Who are you talking to? And they said, write a book about the 12 steps and artwork and how you can do that using art. Because sometimes the 12 steps are a little hard to walk through. So I started doing that. And then I got to about the third or fourth step, and I kind of got stuck, and I realized, as much as I like self-help books, I get to the point where I got to do something, and then I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. So then I heard, and I kind of stopped, and I heard, well, then write a novel. Then I looked up again. I said, well, who are you talking to now? Because I have no idea how to write a novel. And, the voice said, well, you read novels, right? And I said, oh, yeah, I read novels. So I guess I could just model after a novel. So I'm going to plug Stuart Woods here. Sorry, Stuart, if you're listening, or good for, he has a book, Stone Barrington, and they're always short, crisp chapters, and they're quick and they're dirty. And I really wanted to write like that. I didn't want a lot of details. So what I decided to do was I just jumped in and I started to curate my own artwork. So my artwork is a foundation for the program, and I decided that my protagonist, my main character, Claire Sebastian, would be a curator, and she's stationed at the National Museum of Women in the Arts, which is a true museum in DC, and she is going to curate my collection. I mean, it's anonymous. The artist is anonymous in the book, but it's my collection. And as she curates this collection, and there's a diary with it, she realizes that what she's doing, she thinks she's just a party girl, that what she's doing is really not just partying. She's really reacting to some things that are happening in her life. And what happens then is, and she hates my artwork, just so you know, and it was nothing personal. She just hates my artwork because she's like a Renaissance girl and just likes things to look like they're going to look. But that's what this book is about. And what this helped me to do was process some of the really horrific stories that I have heard in the rooms and in my, like with my husband and stuff. And actually my husband's story is the backdrop for Claire, because I found out some stuff after his rehab stint that I didn't know about, and that had affected our marriage and having kids and stuff. So there was a lot of anger I needed to process. So I used his story as the backdrop. So if anybody came on late, I'm going to talk about these 3 pieces, which are in the book. And this one is called The Grass is Greener. And then, and I always did pieces in series, like 3 pieces at a time. I just always kind of work in threes, or I did.
Look at that texture.
Yeah,
I love the texture, you know.
Yeah, this one is so cool. It's acrylic with a heavy gel medium. And then I worked it up with a palette knife, which I really like to do. And it really looks like waves on there and a storm.
I noticed that. I really like that.
And this one is called, this is also, the other one was Is the Grass Greener? And this one is The Grass is Greener. And you can see there's some bees. There's actually real bees in there. I actually pick up things off the street, and so there's really wasps. So I'm going to read you chapter 45 out of my novel, Gift of Desperation. And this artwork came from a very large piece, and my graphic artist took a corner of my piece, and these were flames off of there. But I'm going to read you chapter 45. It says, I'll hold it up so everybody can see. Can they see? Okay. Back at work, Claire continued to review and curate her show and remembered that there were 2 more pieces in the 6x6 series, including the one she held, Is the Grass Greener? Dear Diary, still feeling unsettled and restless, like life is out to get me. I created the second collage of my 6x6 window series, feeling blah with little hope. I painted the background black. I actually love the color black, and I find it to be a very strong color, representing strength. Using black, maybe I will find the courage to not use again. I used another window frame from a dollhouse, also painted black. Through the window is a beautiful garden of flowers I found in a magazine. I added 2 dead wasps from my collection to pollinate them. The flowers represent what I want my life to be. However, I must beware of the 2 wasps that could sting me if I venture into using. As she wrote up this piece, Claire felt the darkness closing in around her. I'm just going to stop for a minute because as a curator, Claire has to actually write a technical description about the pieces. That was the diary from the anonymous artist that I just read. Back to Claire. While she could see the flowers through the window and could almost smell them, she also saw the wasp just waiting to sting her. And she kind of goes into a flashback here. Today was like every day. Every time she headed home from Aunt Joe's, she wished to be invisible, for no one to see her or to know she was there. But they were like wasps, and she was like the flower. They could smell her presence and flew to taste her sweetness. There was no nectar left. They took that away with their harsh words and belts. They did not protect her from her uncle, whose hands and mouth had torn her petals from her stem without stinging her. I'm going to read that one more time. They did not protect her from her uncle, whose hands and mouth had torn her petals from her stem while stinging her over and over again.
Wow.
Almost dropping Is the Grass Greener, Claire wondered why her parents didn't believe her and protect her. How could they let this happen? And where was God in all this? How was she to believe in God and make him her higher power when he didn't protect her either? Claire thought she could not control these memories with the liquor, the men, the partying, not here, not now, not as she got drawn into these paintings. How can the artist go there and take me with her? Let's see. Take me with her. How can I survive doing this? She felt sick and was going to take leave, but something told her to hang on and that it would be okay. Maybe that something was her higher power. Mercy, that's her sponsor, said she had to walk through these feelings to get to the other side so that she wouldn't drink today. It was almost lunch and she wanted to go sit with the Madonna and child painting. But as Claire was ready to walk out, her attention was drawn to the Serenity painting. We talk about the Serenity painting earlier in the book. She found herself sitting down staring. She then felt an uncanny presence, like somebody sitting next to her, swaddling her in a warm blanket of love, telling her that it was okay. No one could hurt her again, that she did not need to drink anymore. In a whisper, she heard, I have always been here. I can't control people's will to hurt others like your uncle or parents, but I can provide some solace like Aunt Jo when it's possible.
Wow, very powerful. And it's very poetic, you know, when it talks about sort of her loss of innocence, using the flower petals and everything as this imagery. And it's the book is like that, guys. I encourage you to get a copy of her book. Robin, tell everybody where they can find your book.
You can find my book at Amazon as a softback copy. They're print on demand, so as you order them, they'll come out. Also, they're on Kindle. If you want a signed copy, you can go into recoveryartstudio.com and hit shop, and I will send you a signed copy. And so they are available wherever you need them. And I want to say something else about the book that I was thinking about. This book, I believe this book validates addicts, people in recovery. I think what I wanted to do was answer the question, you know, what is addiction like? That spinning, that not being able to get off that merry-go-round, that over and over and not being able, whatever your addiction is, like Felicia said, she does something different. It's some kind of self-harming. It's some kind of self-destruction. What is it that we do over and over, and why can't we stop? And then I wanted to know, what point do we break? Where is that gift of desperation? And then I wanted to explain, what does recovery look like? Because we can't just take our family members and send them to a rehab center for 14 or 28 days and expect that they're healed, because there's no cure for this disease. So what does it look like, and what happens when we get a trigger, and how does Claire learn to manage those triggers? And that's really important, because recovery is about managing our disease and about getting better and about learning to walk through the shame and learning that it's not our fault that these people do these things to us, and we shouldn't have to carry that with us, and learning to let that go. So it validates the addict and the person in recovery, and it also helps family members to understand what they're going through. And all the way in the background is how art heals, how we can use art to express ourselves, so that, you pick up your paintbrush, you pick up your pencil, you pick up your journal, you pick up some crowns, you pick up something instead of the needle or the pipe or the joint or the whatever it is, the food, whatever it is that you're picking up to numb out. Let's walk through it with the artwork.
Right, exactly. You explained it to a T, and it's a cycle. Like you said, you got to get off this merry-go-round. You got to stop hurting yourself for something that someone else did to you. And I like what you said about giving validation, because it's very important, not just for the person who's in recovery, but also their family members too. The more we educate ourselves, we can help educate our family members as well. And these books, these workshops, they're not just for people in recovery. I encourage anyone who's going to check out Robin's workshops, which are phenomenal, to get family involved too, because the more they become educated, then they can understand you. And there may be, because sometimes there's a communication barrier. Not many people are going to know what you're talking about when you're talking about recovery, and terms that we use in recovery. So you want your family members and your friends to understand you when you speak. And if they care about you, they're going to want to understand you as well. So it's very important for everybody educate themselves, but you, more importantly, educate yourself about what you're struggling with. And another great point Robin brought up is that this is a mental illness, that addiction is a part of mental health conditions. I know a lot. I talk to a lot of people when I go to conferences and things, and a common question that I get is, do you consider alcoholism or people who are addicted to meth or anything, is that a mental illness? Yes, it is part of mental illness. So we want to stress that it's not just something that a person chooses to keep doing. It's a brain disorder, and it's part of why we call it recovery. Because when we're getting treatment, like we do for other diseases and disorders, we hope to recover from these things. So it's just a constant work. It's constant work.
Yes, thank you, Felicia. And it's a daily thing. And you said something really important about the mental illness, and people are just starting to understand this. And that's why it's so important for us to continue to break the stigma. I never came out and talked about this in public until I joined Unite to Face Addiction, and in 2015 came out and told my story, because I thought it was really important for people to understand that this is a tool. There are many pathways to addiction, to recovery. But I think what people don't understand is that the using piece, it's a physical, mental, and spiritual disease. And the mental piece, the using part is really a symptom. It's really a symptom of a deeper issue. When we pick up something, and usually it's the trauma. It's usually there's some trauma. I heard a story of somebody, and I also suffer from the food addiction, and I'm in a right-sized body now, but I haven't always been, because I would eat my feelings a lot. And I heard a story of somebody who was heavy, and she had plates full of food at this event, and somebody said, her mother said, watch what you're eating. And I thought, I just wanted to say, that's not going to help her, because she probably is depressed. I know the backstory of this person, and this person's probably depressed, and telling them, watch what you eat, manage what you're sticking in your mouth or the joint or whatever, is not what the problem is. That's just the symptom or the reaction to it. And we have to learn how to, to recover, we have to learn what works for us to manage that. Therapy, art, going to 12-step meetings, any of that. We're getting ready to, in Facing Addiction, to put out multiple pathways document on their website, which is going to show all the different ways. There's a Recovery 2.0 with Tommy Rosen. There's, which is a yoga-based type of recovery. And the way that it manifests itself, the way I understand it, is you get a thought, and if you don't know how to manage that thought, and if you haven't used in a while, you've all of a sudden put something poisonous in your body, and now your body reacts, and it's allergic to it, and it needs it again. And it needs it again. And then your mind starts spinning, and you get the obsessive compulsiveness. So that's why when you stop the physical part and it's out of your system, when you get a thought, you're going to get a thought. I've been in recovery for 27 years, and I get a thought. Something bothers me, and I think, well, wouldn't that be nice if? But the first thought is not my fault. This is where people get very surprised. They are surprised after they come out of rehab or they've been in program for so long that they have a thought. The first thought is not my fault. The second thought is your fault and my fault. And if you start to mentally masturbate that thought, you're in a lot of trouble, because before you know it, you're putting something to your mouth, right? And at first it's going to feel really good, and then you're going to be downhill from there, because then you can't stop. And what's happening with this heroin epidemic is these kids are stopping, and then they think after a year they got it under control, and somebody says, here, try this, and they try it, and somebody's laced it with phenol or some kind of elephant tranquilizer, and we've got kids dying left and right because of this epidemic. So the minute you think you've got it, you don't have it, because the disease is always there. I have a friend that used to say, while he was in the meetings, the disease was, trotting along beside him outside in the parking lot. And so I would remember that, I'm inside doing my homework and I'm gearing up. And that's why it's just for today, because outside that disease is really loud.
Yeah, it is. And it's amazing how loud it is on the outside and the inside. You probably see my little buddy back there. That's Aaron. It's my tuxedo cat. He's well behaved, but he really loves to be on camera. So if you guys like cats, he's here joining our discussion as well. And I also see that we have some new viewers. Welcome, guys, and feel free to jump in on the live chat because we're having an open discussion. So anything you write on the chat, if you want to address it to Robin and I, we will acknowledge you. I see that Lisa has congratulated Robin, and that was really awesome. How many years is it now? Is it 26 years?
27 on February 6th from drugs and alcohol, and I had 12 from abstinence and food addiction in November.
Wow,
yeah. The food, I will tell you, the food is harder a little bit because you have to eat with the drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and stuff. You either do it or you don't. Not that you don't mentally have to figure it out, but if anybody wants to know the programs I've worked, you can private message me and I can chat with you about that later.
Definitely. Why don't you share your email address so that people can contact you, and also to how they can sign up for your newsletter?
Yes. So my email is robins, ROBINS .art@verizon.net. It's probably almost better to private message me on Facebook because I see those pop up on my notifications. So, and that's under Robin M. Gilliam. If you want to sign up for my newsletter, and I'm very proud of myself because I'm pretty consistent and I'm sending something out every Tuesday. And I'm trying not to overload people because I know we get a lot of information and it's just a little inspirational blurb and then whatever's going on. Like we put the flyer up about my talk with Felicia. In about a month, I'm going to do a big conference, Turk Addiction, and then I have the big workshop that I'm doing. So I just kind of keep people up to date. Plus, my artwork is for sale, and I'm finally getting brave enough to put that out there. And so I drop in some pictures and stuff at the bottom of the newsletter. But for the newsletter, you can go to recoveryartstudio.com, and it'll say connect with us, some type of button like that. And then you just push that and click it, and then that'll sign you up for the newsletter.
And Chris who sent the question about your workshops, I think that would be a good way if you're watching to keep up with when she's going to be doing workshops, online workshops, and everything. So definitely sign up for that. I'm going to answer the question too, because I think it was directed at both of us about how we became writers. And I was always journaling ever since I was a little girl. It got me through a lot when I was struggling as a young person and living in an abusive home. I really didn't have anybody I could really talk to and express my true feelings to at that time, except my journals. So that's what got me writing, and what made me want to start publishing was my first book, Her, that was based on true events with my life, but also my late best friend named Holly. The book was dedicated to her. That's why the book is called Her. Not that many people know that. It doesn't really have to do with the story. It's just that I wrote the book for her because Holly was a good person, and she gave me a lifetime of beautiful friendship. She was the first best friend I ever had that I felt comfortable opening up to, and she was the first friend that I lost to suicide. And her life and her death had such a great impact on me that I wanted to take those journals, including the journals that I had wrote specifically about my memories of Holly, because I didn't want to forget anything about her. So I would write journals just titled Holly, and I wrote about the color of her eyes. I wrote about the way her voice sounded, because as time goes on, sometimes these are things we forget about, the people we lose in death. And I didn't want to lose one detail about her. So you'll find a lot of her, Holly, inside of my novel titled Her, which you can also find on Amazon. It's at Barnes & Noble, And if you want to get an autographed copy, you can go to my website, FeliciaJohnsonAuthor.com. And then I'm going to share a piece of artwork. It's not that great. It's not as good as Robin, but I joined Robin's recovery art community on Facebook, which you guys should do. There's a lot of great artists in there who express their just show out their emotions and everything through art, and they share openly. And this is the only one I ever felt confident enough to share. But I struggled with a seasonal affective disorder, like around just a little after November, and out through winter. And this to me is what seasonal affective disorder would look like if I could give it a physical form. It's like a bacteria inside of the bloodstream, and you see the thick black walls, almost like that bacteria can never get out. There's not going to be enough medicine to get it in because these walls are so thick. And the only way it's going to break away is until the season is over. So this is the one piece that I've shared with the community, and it got really great feedback. So I encourage you guys who are interested in art, and even if you're not an artist, like I'm not an artist, I just felt like painting that. It was really good feedback. It's a great community, a lot of supportive people. So I thank you, Robin, for starting that community.
So thank you, Felicia. First, I want to say that I have read her book, and it is amazing. And Felicia and I are like two authors with one message, and they're different messages, but we both have taken personal situations and have written novels around them, and not memoirs or, biographies. We've written novels, which I think she agrees was a way we thought we could reach an audience a little differently. And her book was very impactful. I remember when I read her book that I remembered that I was a hitter, not a cutter, but I would just sometimes pound my head or hit myself hard just to stop whatever the pain was. And I'd forgotten about that till I read her book. And I did it up until about maybe 4 years ago. And then all of a sudden I said, what am I doing? Why do I have to hurt myself? I'm almost giving myself a concussion or something. And it just wasn't acceptable. So that, and then the recovery art community, thank you for bringing that up. That is a great community. I'm actually starting a new Facebook Live. This also answers Chris's questions about the workshops. I'm also starting a new Facebook Live, Facebook group called, and it's free, Recovery Art Warriors. So I will be archiving eventually Recovery Art Community and asking those people to come over and join. And it's going to be a little bit different with prompts. Recovery Art Community was very active in the beginning, and then it seems to have fizzled out a little bit. And I still want to encourage that. And as I said before, I kind of named what we are. We are Recovery Art Warriors. And I think Claire was really the first one that I identified with. And she is a good one because she didn't believe or even know anything about recovery art or how it can heal. And you can see how she goes through some workshops in there. And then I've taken those workshops and put them in. And from the live workshop that I'm doing in May, I'm going to develop an online workshop, Chris, for people who necessarily cannot get to Annapolis or are not in this area. And that I'm hoping will probably be coming maybe towards the end of the year, beginning of April 2019. So that I'm working on, and that way I can bring it to more people. I think you'll really like the Facebook group. We're going to have, like Recovery Art Warriors are courageous on Tuesday. And then what does courageous mean? It's what is a recovery art warrior? We're focusing on positive things, positive ways to think, positive ways to do creative art. There's not about your abuser bashing. We're not going into the negative stuff. We're not staying there. We're going positive. Fearless on Friday. And don't quote me on these because they might change as and we will have a place on Fridays to share if you know of any art for healing. So I'm trying to figure out how to do a promotion in a healthy way for the people on the group, but it will also be a place for me to tell you about my workshops. But, what are some art for healing events that are going on around you? Do you have a show? Did you finish a piece of work? Like Felicia said, and this is so important, you do not have to be an artist to be a recovery art warrior. In fact, it's almost better because those of us that are artists think we have techniques and we have to make things, colors that work and things that pop and lines that are straight. And that it's not that at all. It's about progress and not perfection. In fact, don't bring your perfectionism. If most of us as addicts in recovery are really perfectionists, and then we can't do a thing.
That's the first thing you said in the workshop that I went to, your workshop, that when we were in Baltimore speaking at the NAMI conference, we were both speaking at the National Alliance for Mental Illness conference up in Baltimore, and Robin's workshop was phenomenal. And that was I remember that was the very first thing you said when you gave us our art kits, that do not think about it, just go for it. And I love that. It did take a lot of the pressure off, saying that in the very beginning.
Yes. So my rule is, it's a very serious rule, people. There's no perfection. That's my rule, is no perfection. You don't have to be an artist. You just have to let yourself do it. It's like when we look through magazines and we collect images that we like or words that we like, you will find when you put them into a collage that there will be some kind of brilliant message that comes from your intuition somewhere, that is some kind of message you need to hear. You know, what do you like? That's the other thing we're going to talk about in the group. You know, what do you like when we're, you know, this Me Too, hashtag Me Too, I love the fact that they came out with that, and that, you know, it's defined and it's a movement, but sexual assault's been going on for centuries, and we've been deluged with the darkness for a long time. And this is about, you know, defining, I am me. Who am I? What do I like? It's not about living in and owning, you know, just because somebody did something bad to us, that's not us. That is not us. I am not that event. It's just something that happened to me. And I think that's so important, that when we get into the positive light and we start to create through our feelings and create into our dreams, that, you know, things will just get much better and you'll feel better. And we can do that as a community.
Right. Exactly. Good points. All good points. I have a question that's directed towards me, and I'm glad Lisa is here because we're part of the same group. I believe Lisa Taylor is in the chat, and also Clark. Now, this question comes from Clark because it's directed to the community of ex-cult members, cult survivors. And Clark, he said that he wanted to know that if anybody else in the XJW community uses meditation as a way of healing. He said, meditation has helped me, and he was able to look at his fears and drive them away through meditation. And so we know in the cult that we were brought up in, Lisa, me, Taylor, Clark, same one, meditation is sort of is kind of a bad thing. If they say meditate, they want you to meditate on their material, their words. But I use meditation, open eye meditation, every day, and it does help you look deep within yourself. And sometimes you find yourself on other planes. And I know that sounds kind of strange, but it's almost like when you get into a deep meditation, you're not in the present pain. You're able to step outside of yourself and look at what's going on around you. I find that meditation, especially open eye meditation, helps me with mindfulness, because I'm listening to the things around me, and I'm seeing with more than just these two eyes. I'm seeing with my third eye, and I'm feeling everything around me, and being mindful of people, family, friends, my cat, you know, being very mindful. And so meditation is good. And Lisa, that's wonderful. She made a good point in the chat. Lisa said, absolutely, meditation is key to her sanity out of that cult. And I'm going to go ahead and validate and confirm with that. So Clark, thank you for, you know, saying that, for asking that question, because as you can see, you're not alone. Lisa and I both agree with you. Yes, meditation is a good way to help you with your sanity, especially coming out of something like that. You know, it takes a lot of recovery, which is exactly what we're talking about. You know, deprogramming and recovering from that trauma that we experienced in that cult. So thank you for that, Clark. That was amazing.
Thank you. You know, you brought up a really good point that trauma comes in all forms. That's extreme, the cult, the, you know, sexual assault. I was raped and sodomized by my husband when I was trying to leave. And that was pretty extreme. He stole my cat, he stole all my stuff. And I mean, I think I had a nervous breakdown, honestly. And then, you know, recovering or deprogramming from that stuff. I grew up with a lot of criticism and judgment and deprogramming from that. You know, when I find myself kind of doing that with my husband, I'm like, boy, I don't want to sound like my grandmother, you know? So it's like, how do you stop doing that? And it's just one day at a time. And art is like, it's kind of like meditation. It's like, you know, you can do it. And when I'm in it, even if I'm in it, I'm trying to solve a problem, because a lot of times as the artist or trying to develop a workshop, I'm in something and it might be frustrating, but my mind is not thinking about those other things. My mind is not crazy. It's just focused on solving the problem of what I want to do and how I want to present something to other recovery art warriors. It's maybe trying to figure out how I want to do something with the materials, which you don't have to worry about, because I'm already going to tell you that. And, you know, I'm trying not to make it that technical, more of an intuitive way to release the emotions and experience and to own what it is that you like. What do you like? And that meditation and that, so art is like a form of meditation also. And absolutely. I think that, yeah. And whatever we can do to heal and whatever we can do to recover. And it's like staying one step ahead of that disease, just one step ahead, and saying, I know you're there, you know, like, especially with the thoughts, they're kind of like clouds. Like if you just kind of let them pass by and just say, hey, thanks for stopping by, but I don't need you today. Figure out something that you can do with those thoughts, because those yucky thoughts are going to come, and you know your abusers are going to stop by and visit you, and something else is going to happen, and you know, but we have to just be one step ahead, because we can recover and we can, you know, prosper and be productive members of society. We don't have to sit in our addiction and be withering away somewhere. So yeah, it's really important. I'm really excited about this Recovery Art Warrior. And so now I'm going to call my academy Raw Academy. So we have a Recovery Art Warrior Academy. And I'm, like I said, I'm getting brave to put my artwork up, and I'm going to be merging my two websites. So you'll come into my gallery and then you'll be able to see the Recovery Art, the Raw Academy. So you can see what classes are up there. You'll see also where I will be on events or other speaking engagements. And, so if you do read the book, everybody says, when's the second one coming out? I have to say, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. And I'm not as fast as Felicia. Felicia's been writing. Luckily, we're not having a contest, because she's been doing a lot more than me.
My characters just have a lot to say.
Yeah, my character.
You gotta say raw, right? You gotta say it with a roar. It's the raw community. Raw.
I'm just, if anybody is a writer out there, I will tell you, Felicia will know this. You almost must, Stephen King, I'd hate to be in his mind, or maybe I'd love to be in his mind, but your characters start to talk to you, and you're thinking they're going to do something, and all of a sudden they tell you they're going to do something else, and you have to stop and regroup and adjust your story. And okay. And then you're like, then you have to kind of sit quietly and meditate and say, okay, like I have a character named Evie, and she's a wounded warrior. And I love Evie. She's kind of like the Al-Anon kind of, you know, she's got her own issues and she's in recovery, but she also knows what she should and should not do with Claire, because the more you push somebody, the more they're not coming into recovery. Anyway, and Evie is a wounded warrior, and I wanted her to be female. I work in DC, and I see a lot of, you know, homeless people and, you know, amputees and stuff. And I wanted to write in a strong character who was recovering.
My favorite.
Yeah.
My favorite.
You liked Evie? Yeah.
I made that very clear. We need more Evie.
We need more Evies, and she's really cool, and she's got a role in the second book too. She's like the healer, and so I'm not going to tell you all of her secrets, because you have to read about Evie.
Absolutely.
But she's got her own story and how she ended up in Evie's and Claire's family. But yeah, I'll be sitting there and thinking she's going to do one thing, and she decides she's going to do something else. So you have to readjust your chapters, and
it's great.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
And Lisa got she's got the idea down for raw. She has a little tiger icon there, so you might want to think about your logo. Maybe add a little tiger to it for Recovery Art Warriors.
What's the R stand for, Lisa? Raw. Recovery Art Warriors. Recover. R.
Because they have that raw.
Raw. Yeah, we'll play with the branding and logos and names. Take forever to try to pin that down, and it's really just it's the message. It's really the message, and that's great, Lisa. You're going to be roaring with us, right? Roar more.
Yeah, I like that. So, guys, we're going to.
Lisa is our cheerleader.
We're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for joining us, and thank you, Robin, for being on. You're a lot of fun. We'll do this more often, and you maybe get a good group going. You guys will find this funny, but this is how Robin and I met. We did a YouTube live with the Women's Speakers Association, which we were both members of, and they had a little WSA TV thing, and it was live streamed on YouTube. And we met just like that. It was the group of ladies, and we were all chatting about our journey with speaking and how we became public speakers. And here we are again. You know what I mean? So I just thought that was awesome.
I did want to say, I do have a YouTube channel also. I'm in the midst of bringing it up and really understanding how to use it. So y'all can come over, and I think it's Recovery Art Studio. So just come over and subscribe, because my videos or vlogs will be more how I'm bringing up a piece of artwork. You know, a video on what it looks like to bring up a piece of artwork, the creative process, the healing process. I use a lot of symbolism in my found objects and kind of explaining what that symbolism is. So if you subscribe, like I said, don't expect anything too soon, because it's a lot of work to do all this social media stuff. So, but know that is out there, and it's going to be connected. It'll be connected to the Recovery Art Warrior Facebook group, and slowly but surely we'll be getting it together, and we're going to roar.
Roar. That's what we're going to do. All right, guys, remember, check out Robin's website, recoveryartstudio.com. And if you want to get in touch with her, Robin, maybe you can type in your Instagram handle and the link to your website in the chat, the live chat, so that everybody can know how to get in touch with you there before we close out.
So I am doing the Instagram it was recovery_art_studio. And then, yeah, so Recovery Art Studio. On the newsletters also is the links. When I send out the newsletters, people can get those links and see when they click on them, they can go into Instagram and also into Twitter. We're doing a lot on Instagram. So we've got 10,000 plus followers on Instagram. So join us over there too. And I'm trying to do something different on each of the social medias, so you don't get the same repeat. Like there'll be more like inspirational messages on Instagram. In the Facebook group, it's going to be more kind of hands-on and, you know, ask you guys to get engaged and, you know, what are you doing today creatively to help you stay positive and mentally positive and, you know, developing yourself, developing self-care, self-construction. And then the YouTube will be more like videos or vlogs about how the artwork is brought up, how I create my artwork.
Awesome.
Thank you, everybody. Felicia, thanks for inviting me.
Of course, everybody, you know how to get in touch with me. Again, my website is FeliciaJohnsonAuthor.com. All links to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything's on there. Give us a follow, send us some messages, tell us what you'd like to hear us talk about. Always send your questions too, because you're going to always be acknowledged. We're all in this together, right? Can't take one person in this community to make a difference. We all have to join together to end the stigma. And the only way to end that stigma is if we continue to talk about it. Everybody speak up, speak loudly, and speak clearly. We love you. Talk soon.
Bye.